Yeah.
So this is going to be Shawn Tabrizi.
It's Shawn Tabrizi versus Christopher Sorenson. Shawn is, I believe, on Grixis Delver. Yes. And Christopher is on Death and Taxes. So 2 decks that we haven't seen yet, and decks that are reasonably interactive with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I think Thalia is going to do a major role in this matchup.
Yeah.
That task. All right, so Thalia is the big card, I think, in the matchup for the Death Taxes side, whereas Gurmag Angler is the big one. The Taskers are going to be the big one for the.
Yeah, Gurmag Angler specifically being better than Tasker because it can't get hit by Caracas.
Yeah. And again, 5/5 is really hard for the Death Taxes deck to deal with.
Yeah.
Efficiently. So both these players are 3-0 though, so they're both having a good day.
Yeah.
I know Shawn Tabrizi's been playing this Grixis Delver list for what feels like ever.
He's had a decent amount of success. I know he has a few top 8s of these, but hasn't broken through to win one yet. But off to another good start.
Yeah, it's always nice to see. Again, you always like being undefeated at least halfway through a tournament.
Yeah.
It's also a good sign for your tiebreakers at the end of the day. Feel a little bit better after that.
Yeah, with 6 rounds, generally, if you're 4-0, you have a reasonable shot of drawing twice into making top 8. Not exactly sure how things are going to break down today, but that tends to be the case.
Most definitely. Yeah, the matchup is going to be pretty interesting. Notably, Kolaghan's Command is going to probably be really good against Death and Taxes deck.
True.
Because it kills a lot of their creatures, and it also kills like things like Ether Vial.
Yeah, killing equipment or a vial is a pretty big deal.
And it's something that these Death and Taxes decks aren't really necessarily equipped to deal with as much because they're not used to seeing a lot of Kolaghan's Commands running around. Seeing as the Bug Delver list has been the more popular variant of the Delvers.
Yeah.
So that'll be very interesting. Yeah, there'll be a lot of interesting interactions. It will really be based on probably their opening hands to see really who gets to come out under the beats playing first. Lightning Bolt's going to be really good also for the Grixis Delver deck.
Yeah, assuming the Grixis deck has Bolt and Fatal Push, it's got a pretty good amount of interaction against the early creatures from the Death Taxes deck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Death Taxes deck is pretty good at disrupting mana against the
very
light Delver deck.
Yeah, I remember I did that with my Abzan deck at times. Just, you start firing off your wastelands, and they only really want 1 or 2 lands in play.
Yeah.
So you just start taking them off, and usually that lets you take them off of either black or red, so you get to kind of choose which one you hate. Fatal Push definitely makes that harder because now they have removal on both colors.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how many wastelands that can be drawn.
Yeah, and the Grixis deck does have Deathrite, so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure.
A way to fight against the mana disruption, and it looks like the players are finally getting situated, so we can head down to the match.
Here we go. Get to watch again some over-the-top shuffling.
Yeah.
Hot card-on-card action here as they shuffle away.
I'm assuming that both players pass the deck check with flying colors, so we don't have to worry about that.
Definitely.
Just get started on the match.
Quickly nip something into the butt real quick on chat. Some people just don't like to be on camera. It's just they just get nervous underneath the camera, or they just would rather not have people judge their play.
Yeah, and it is worth pointing out that that was the 1 and 2 bracket.
Yeah, so he's probably not having a great day.
Not having a good day. Already disappointed. Maybe made some play mistakes that they're not proud of, and just don't want the day to get worse by making even more mistakes on camera.
Definitely, everybody has their own unique preferences and tastes, and we don't want to try to, we're not going to force anybody to sit on our camera. But we get Shawn Tabrizi against Christopher Sorenson. That name is kind of a mouthful, like 6 to 8 syllables or something like that. But you get that good old Death and Taxes going. Be really interested to see how he's adjusted to the post-Fatal Push world. I actually have not played a lot of Legacy since Fatal Push came out. It'll be interesting to see if he's opted for less 2 power or 2 CMC creatures and more 3 CMC creatures. With the Bug Delver deck on the uprise and Fatal Push being in that deck as well.
Yeah, it's possible. I know certainly with the Recruiter / plus Sanctum Prelate, recent printings, that the Death and Taxes deck has been moving towards more 3-mana creatures anyway, and it's possible that push is only further accelerated.
Definitely, they definitely have that also interesting card advantage strategy that Shawn's going to have to nip in the butt right away, or unless it's going to run away, which is the Flicker Wisp and Recruiter to the Guard.
Yes.
Synergies. Being able to just keep flickering that Recruiter to go get another Flicker Wisp, you will lose the game fairly quickly. And while 3 CMC creatures can be killed through Fatal Push, it does require them to have Revolt, which is easy enough with fetch lands, but again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, when to crack your fetch lands is a huge part in this Legacy metagame. So forcing your opponent to have to do it in order to kill your creature is
it's not a guarantee. We saw in one of our earlier matches with Richard versus Connor that Richard had a Fatal Push that he had to wait at least one turn before he drew a fetch land to kill the Bloodbraid Elf.
Definitely. So we're going to start with the Gitaxian Probe.
Pretty solid hand here from Chris. Got the turn 2 Thalia, plus some interaction.
Yeah, and a Recruiter.
Yeah.
Seems good.
And the best sword in this matchup.
Yeah. You couldn't really ask for too much more than that. A Vial off the top would be fantastic, but...
Yes. He doesn't have a Wasteland, which is one of the best cards in this matchup. But other than that, it's looking good.
So Shawn is going to double Gitaxian Probe, drawing a True Name Nemesis. Notably, his hand looks to be double Wasteland and this fetch. Not necessarily the greatest, but it'll do.
Not sure what the black card in the back of Shawn's hand is.
Christopher's doing us a great favor here and leaving his hand face up. Gotta love that. Of course, this is not required from anybody. This is just a service they do sometimes.
Yes.
Alright, just Wasteland and go.
Well, probably going to take care of this Thalia.
Yeah, so it's interesting here. So this is going to force Shawn to go get a Volcanic Island, which notably means that he will still be in need of a black source in order to cast this. I believe it was a Tasker that was in his hand. Again, it could be the Gurmag Angler. It's one of the Black Delve creatures, it looks like.
Sure.
Trying to guess based on the art in the back of the hand. It's a talent that I'm slowly gaining as I do more and more casting, but...
He does have a Ponder that can potentially draw him into a black land.
Definitely.
Or a Brainstorm. I think he would want a Ponder, given that he doesn't have a fetch land in his hand right now. But he's going to Brainstorm and try to find one.
Yeah, I like the Brainstorm first, because if you find a fetch land, which is what you want, you then get the option to fetch away bad things. Like the second Wasteland is not something you want.
Yeah, he definitely wants to shuffle, but if the Brainstorm hadn't found him a fetch land, it would be pretty awkward.
It looks like that was a Deathrite Shaman, is the black card in his hand. So he's pitching back one.
He drew a Deathrite off the Brainstorm, and
he had a second one.
The other card was also a Deathrite?
Yeah. So it looks like he's going to fetch away the second Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
I forgot that these decks run Deathrite Shamans.
Yeah, let's see. I assume that there's a single Tropical Island for the Deathrite activations, but otherwise, this Grixis Dover deck is truly Grixis.
Yeah.
Oh, I take it back. There is also an Ancient Grudge in the sideboard, so
that makes sense.
A little bit of green mana there.
A little bit. Might as well. You use your splash as best as possible. This is one of the things with Deathrite Shaman, though, that makes him so powerful. He also gives non-green decks a way to accelerate out creatures and things.
Yep.
And, you know, exiling the land from a graveyard is not a high cost when almost everybody runs fetch lands.
Though notably, the Death and Taxes deck does not.
Yeah, very noticeable.
However, Shawn's True Name Nemesis could be pretty good.
Christopher looks like he found a Spirit of the Labyrinth. So that card's really good against like these Delver decks that have both Brainstorms and Ponders.
It's really good if you can Violent into play in response to a Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Just as a 3/1 creature, though, it's pretty easy to remove before actually playing one of your draw spells.
Definitely. Yeah, against Brainstorm, it's just like, it's dirty. Yeah, you're gonna draw one card and then put 2 cards from your hand back on top of your library.
Yep.
Hope that felt real good.
Or even against Jace, that they could draw 0 cards and then put 2 back.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. So let's see here. Looks like that. I'm assuming that Stoneforge is not long for this world.
Definitely not.
Notably, Shawn has not yet been able to set up the top of his library, and again, he doesn't have an instant speed way to do so. So this will be a blind flip from this Delver, but
yeah, he's got the Ponder, so he's probably going to be able to set up for the turn after.
yeah,
And then, given that he knows Chris doesn't have any more lands in hand, wastelanding this Horizon Canopy seems like a reasonable idea.
definitely. He could be saving it for like a Caracas or something of that nature if he's got.
He does have the True Name Nemesis and doesn't have a third land, so
Never.
he might want to keep the Wasteland in play just to guarantee that he can play the True Name later.
Legacy, the format where Delver flips 100% of the time.
Yeah, well, when your deck is more than 50% spells,
Definitely.
the odds are pretty good.
Definitely. It's also just like Legacy has so many ways to set up the top of your deck that like the rare times you actually do have to blind flip, like it just feels like it's always flipping anyway.
Yep. And Probe reveals a port, which means that wastelanding is a little bit less appealing.
Definitely. And that Taxiing Probe is like the best thing he could be flipping with Delver because he managed to draw into another land, which you maybe don't necessarily want, but it's still fine. But you got to flip your Delver.
Well, he definitely does want the land this turn because it lets him bolt the Stoneforge and play True Name in the same turn.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a good series of draws there for Shawn. True Name Nemesis, naming you. Making sure not to choose himself. Good call.
I choose you.
Christopher Sorenson. That is one of my my lifelong goals, though, is to use a Mind Slaver type effect, take my opponent's turn.
True Name themselves.
True Name themselves.
It is an option.
It's convoluted, but you know.
So, let's see. Taking a look at Christopher's deck list, his Recruiter the Guard can fetch any number of good options. Mirror Crusader is one that's potentially pretty good against Bug Delver, but a little bit worse against the first one that's Lightning Bolt.
Definitely. So this is the Richardon port. It's a little late here, and Shawn has enough mana to really start to do the things he needs.
Yeah, I imagine Chris is not going to be activating it anytime soon. He's probably just going to play out some more threats. Maybe Swords this Delver.
Shawn's on 2 cards in hand. I kind of like doing this sorcery speed for the swords.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're weak to Force Will, but if he has a Force Will, it's both cards in his hand that are going.
And Spell Pierce, Fluster Storm are both cards that could exist.
The other option here, of course, is just to hard cast this GT for the same reason. You want it to resolve.
I don't like that as much just because the True Name is a pretty
Immune to
guaranteed
it.
blocker against any potentially equipped creature.
Yeah, and you don't really have a flyer just yet to get over the top of it.
He has the Sword of Fire and Ice to give Pro Blue, but that is going to be a few turns down the line.
Definitely. Yep, so he's opting for the sorcery speed swords. And again, I do like this. You're at 17, you don't want to be taking 6 a turn. 3 a turn doesn't still feel great, but it's better than 6.
Yeah, notably, if this True Name stays back to block later turns, Shawn doesn't have the additional clock of Delver pushing through for damage.
So it looks like Shawn found another ponder, so he's going to go ahead and ponder here. Finds Wasteland Force Will Polluted Delta. I think you shuffle this away.
Yeah, that is not a very good ponder. You want to get rid of that.
In theory, if you wanted another land, which I don't think you do, you could take the Blue Delta and then fetch it away. You do have another ponder in hand.
He could take the Wasteland and double waste Christopher.
Yeah, take him off of port and
Yeah,
Horizon
that's
Canopy.
pretty ambitious.
Yeah, he really needs a removal for this Stoneforge Mystic right now, because he is liable to just get like those equipment just dropped into play for free.
Yeah, currently the Sword of Fire and Ice is the most problematic, as Shawn does not really have an answer to it.
Yeah.
And just like that, drew the Lightning Bolt.
Yep, again, never didn't have it. That's the goal. So yeah, here comes the wasteland. I like this.
Yeah, he doesn't need the colorless mana anymore.
And now that you know you're going to be able to get rid of the Stoneforge Mystic, you don't want to give Christopher access to as many lands as he has. And you don't necessarily need your lands. You can now start just deploying these cards out. Very, very good turn for Shawn there. And again, like, this is one of the difficulties of playing decks like Grixis Delver. Like, that sequence of plays is not something you can, like, it's really hard to anticipate that. And you really have to have foresight into what could be in the top 3 cards of your library. You know, in order to draw, should I shuffle, should I grab this, you know. It makes sequencing very difficult. And when you do it correctly, you end up using all your mana, which is exactly something you want to do every turn.
Yep. And
with total board control.
Getting to make a lot of decisions every turn.
Here's an Ether Vial, right on time. Turn like 8. Notably though, Shawn does only have a Ponder in hand, which does not look good against this Spirit of the Labyrinth.
Yeah, I imagine that Shawn is just going to be on full race mode, trying to end this game in 3 turns between the True Name and the Deathrite.
Definitely. And he drew a Daze. Also not the greatest.
It's not bad though. If Chris tries to hardcast this sword, then it can get dazed unless he draws the 4th land.
I think you could play Jite here. Because it can't be dazed, and like it forces Shawn to actually hold back if he wants to.
Yeah, the life gain would be pretty important here.
Yeah, because it really puts there you go, puts the onus on Shawn to have to hold back True Name to block now instead of coming in as an attacker.
Yeah, and he also drew the swords that could potentially answer this Deathrite.
Definitely.
So we'll see if he chooses to play it this turn or wait till a later turn when he can play around days.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So the card in hand, the last creature in hand is Recruiter of the Guard. So that will probably, once he gets that vial up to 3, he could start his shenanigans as well. So he's going to try to swords that Deathrite Shaman. It looks like...
He's going to let it happen.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe trying to save the days for something more important, like he knows that...
Yeah, he knows about the Sword of Fire and Ice from the previous Gitaxian Probe. So
yeah,
he doesn't want to...
walk into it.
Let Chris just pay 3 mana for that.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense, because, like... He doesn't want to be able to race... He doesn't want to have to try to race this Jite and a Swords. He drew a Spell Pierce, so that Swords is likely not going to resolve.
Is, and I guess True Name's just going to sit back on defense.
The downside here for Shawn, though, is that, again, he's now been taken off of all of his offensive capability.
Yep.
So he's got to draw into that ability to play offense. And it looks like Christopher drew a Sarah Angel, or Sarah Avenger.
That's a pretty fantastic draw.
Right on time when you're Vial 6/2. Feel great.
It's also a flying creature that can get past the True Name.
Yeah, I really like this. Like, I think you just pass the turn. You get to Violent Angel at end of Shawn's turn. Untap, equip.
Yeah.
And you get to tap down with
Port the Black Source, so potential Fatal Push can't show up.
Yeah. It could still have Bolt, but...
Drawing a very awkward Brainstorm. Probably doesn't want to cast that
yeah,
into Spirit.
I think Shawn's window for winning this game probably just slammed shut. I mean, he could still draw something great, like Kolaghan's Command would be amazing.
He doesn't have it in his deck.
Oh, it's in his sideboard? No,
nope,
not at all.
It's 75.
It's an interesting call. I think that card's real good. Maybe that's just me, though.
Yeah, I think the Delver deck doesn't have quite as many lands to want
That's fair.
3 mana spells.
That's very fair. But, again, he's going to be weak to things like Jite because of it. I mean, Ancient Grudge is totally coming in, but...
Yeah. Shawn definitely has a lot of good sideboard options for this matchup, but Kolaghan's Command is not one of them.
Yep, interesting debate. Interesting debate.
So, Shawn is casting a Ponder that will not draw a card. He's just stacking the top of his deck. That is not where you want to be.
Here comes the Sarah Avenger. Now I get to uptick. Yeah, this is just crazy. Crazy value time.
You were kind of joking that Chris drew the vial right on time, but he really did.
He did. Like it's. I mean, the vial into his series of draws has just been fantastic.
Without the vial, then this would be a very different game.
Yeah, I mean, he still could have played the Sarah Angel last turn, and he just would have left himself open. But yeah, that vial is now going to be able to let him play Recruiter at instant speed, go get a Flicker Wisp, be able to vial that in on the following turn. And he can even vial that in his protection if Shawn does find a removal spell.
So I think that once this once this Jit has gotten counters to potentially bump the Sarah Avenger up to a 5/5, not a whole lot that Shawn can do.
Yeah. Does he run any fatal pushes?
I do not see any.
Ouch.
It's a very
aggressive. I like that. I mean,
you
you do want to point a lot of your extra removal spells at face, so I understand like the 4 lightning bolts.
Yeah, you're definitely going to run 4 bolt before you run any number of fatal push.
And he's running a Dismember over any other removal spell, which is fine because Reality Smasher and things of that nature.
Shawn is also main decking 3 Stifle, which is not something that you see in every Grixis list. So a little bit shorter on removal in exchange for the potential power of Stifle.
So Shawn's like, well, I guess I'm in race mode. I do kind of like this. Again, it's going to force Christopher eventually to have to maybe use a counter or so off of GT for life gain rather than for pumps, but he's likely just dead.
Yeah, Shawn drew the Dismember, so if Christopher tries to pump the Sarah Angel twice before damage, then Dismember could get him, but otherwise,
I
don't think it's going to be good enough.
Yeah, and unfortunately he's only doing 9 damage if he doesn't pump it twice. We'll see how patient Christopher is with it. Ooh, looks like he's getting Sanctum Prelate instead.
It's an interesting option. I imagine he's going to name 1, but it's not going to matter very much.
I actually really like this line of play. So, here's where Shawn's outs are. He's going to cast this Dismember, taking 2, going to 8, trying to kill this Sarah Avenger after like the first counter's removed. The GT will no longer get any counters on it. Then he has to try to crack back in with True Name Nemesis and draw a Lightning Bolt. Like, he'll respond to the second counter getting removed.
Yeah, so that works if Christopher tries to pump twice, but there's no guarantee that he will.
Yeah.
Especially,
well,
I imagine that Christopher would want to activate the vial, putting in the prelate, and see if Shawn responds.
That's fair. And then... Oh?
So this is...
So they went to combat.
Oh,
he did.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's 9 points of damage without both GT activations.
Yeah. It does make sense to go for it, though I think that you do want to try to put the prelate into play first.
Yeah, although you'd probably now you put the prelate into play and you name 1 because you don't want to be lightning bolted.
Yes. So we play Thalia.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm just gonna daze because he can.
Yeah, make him tap out. I mean, you have the Spell Pierce anyway as backup, so you're not really that worried.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything that could matter here. Yeah, so now he's gonna put it in.
Calling 1.
Getting a die to make sure.
Yeah. It looks pretty locked up for Christopher. Notably, oh yeah, it looks pretty locked up. Like, he's just going to be able to attack for 4 next turn.
Yeah, Shawn needs to draw multiple cards in order to get out of this, and he cannot do that.
It's like a Gurmag Angler, or was that a Deathray Shaman?
He does have the True Name as a potential blocker, but at the same time, there's just 4 creatures crashing in, so it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you play your Krakus. You probably play this Friction Revoker out and name Deathbright Shaman. If your attack for some reason does not lethal.
He can equip GT to the Recruiter, because that's the one that has to get through for damage, and then attack. True Name gets to block 1, Deathrite has to chump 1, and then you put Shawn down to 1 and get some jit counters.
So then the question is, what do you block? I think you block the Spirit of the Labyrinth with... and I forgot about the Prelate. You could just attack with everything now, I guess? Because the Prelate's what, a 2-2?
Yes, it is a 2-2.
So that's 3 damage. But then you leave that open to be removed. No, because he can't block the Prelate either. Or, sorry, he lets the Thalia through, maybe? So equip the...
He has to let the Recruiter through, and then he has to... One of his creatures has to block the Spirit.
Yeah.
So Deathrite's probably training with Spirit. And then True Name probably blocks Thalia.
Yeah.
Actually, no, he can block the... He blocks Prelate with the True Name.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, okay. So I think Christopher potentially should have equipped the Thalia.
Yeah, like it's a debate because like I think Thalia exactly is going to get through because you want to kill the Prelate so you can cast this.
Yeah, but this way he can kill both the Spirit and the Prelate, and then brainstorm into potentially hitting something good.
It also means that like if you didn't kill the Prelate, you couldn't cast this Daze. Or the never mind, you could.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
He can't cast the Brainstorm.
He can't cast the Brainstorm, yeah.
And he needs to be able to brainstorm into multiple cards in order to have an out this game, and he cannot do that otherwise.
Yeah, with these two in play.
Another potential reason for equipping the Thalia is that he has Crocus, so if the True Name blocks Thalia to prevent any GT counters, he can just Crocus his own Thalia.
Fair. But then it's not doing any damage and you're fine with that?
Well, yeah, it wasn't going to do any damage anyway.
Yeah.
You just...
You're just going to save it. Save it but not be able to replay it.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Shawn can make the most out of this Brainstorm here. Notably, this Brainstorm will cost 2. Oh, he's thinking about...
He's dazing the Revoker, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't let Christopher have another creature in play.
And the awkward thing about this is, what would you name him from Revoker at this stage in the game?
I would imagine just Deathrite. I can't think of any other activated abilities that would be in Shawn's stack.
Yeah. It's an interesting decision.
He could potentially name...
He drew a Ponder.
Yeah, there's really not anything.
So unfortunately, I don't think he's got a way out here.
No.
Because he's only got 3 mana and he has to use 2 of that to cast.
He can spend 2 on a Brainstorm, and then the Brainstorm draw into land plus a 1 mana.
But he had to play the land because of Daze.
That's true. So yeah, he does not have an answer here.
Like, I can't think of it.
Deathrite gives him a chump blocker, except that the Jit can just kill the Deathrite.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work.
And then you get to kill him with Recruiter of the Guard as a 1/1.
Yeah.
Ah, the value!
Yeah. Shawn's gonna play it anyway. Maybe Christopher doesn't see it.
Yeah. Oh, I always approve of the lines of play sometimes when you know it's hopeless. Just make your opponent show you that they know how to kill you. Because when your opponent misses, and then you get to lethal them, you feel amazing.
Yeah.
And he has a sword, so he has all the ways to kill.
He's not immediately going for it, so... Not sure what he could be thinking about. No, he's going to sword the Deathrite. This also works.
Yeah, like... Oh, he gets to gain a life. Sure. Block, use a counter.
Yeah.
Good games. Oops. You know what I forgot? To update our scoreboard again. That was game 1, everybody. Game 1. Again, fun, interesting interactions in that match.
Yeah, that game ended up being pretty close, despite Shawn having a fantastic opening hand with multiple bolts. He had Delver that blind flipped.
Yeah, and as you said, like, Vial is usually like a really bad draw late, and again, it was awful what was given in his hand, but because the game went on long enough and Shawn was not able to close the door, Christopher really did a good job drawing out of that.
Indeed.
And Vial really helped him apply that block.
So let's take a look at the sideboards here. So Christopher has Council's Judgment, which can answer a True Name Nemesis. He's got some Path as additional removal, though I'm not sure how much removal he wants to have in this matchup. And that's about it. He has Gideon into the sideboard, but I don't think you want to bring that in against the Delver deck.
Sorry, I'm laughing at our chat here. They did a Magic 8 Ball. Will this match go to time? There's 10 minutes left in this round. It is certain.
So that clock is not actually accurate.
No, it's not.
These players have a fairly lengthy extension because of a deck check.
There's 16 minutes left in the round as it is, and then there's also the deck check.
Yeah, I think that's closer to 25 minutes left for them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry.
Yeah, going back to sideboarding. From Shawn's side, he's got Ancient Grudges definitely coming in, Dread of Night, which is definitely coming in, Forge Bolt, which I would imagine is coming in, but that is about it.
Yeah. Out of this deck list, he's got 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, so I would be snap bringing those in. Those seem
I don't
decent.
think it's good enough when you're on the draw. The Delver deck having Daze, Spell Pierce, and
that's fair.
ways to keep you off of 4 mana.
I like that it's a big fat pressure that they have to like actually deal with, and if they didn't have the way to deal with it, they're probably not winning through it.
Yeah, it is a very powerful threat, but I don't think that it's necessary, and it can be a liability if it's just sitting in your hand.
Council's Judgment seems good. Again, you just need more removal for their things.
Yeah, and as I said, it can hit True Name Nemesis, which is pretty important.
Yeah, very, very true. Got a couple Path to Exiles as well. This deck doesn't run a lot of basics, so that's an option as well.
Actually, taking a look, it runs 0.
So
Path is fantastic.
Path is actually better than Swords.
Yeah.
Other than that, he could. He's got some graveyard interaction where he could, in theory, want to, but I don't think it's really necessary.
Not super relevant.
Yeah, you didn't really see a ton of Snapcasters.
Shawn only has a couple of Gurmags. He's not actually running his Snapcasters.
Oh, okay.
So there's no guarantee that Chris would
know that, and but it's very, very interesting.
Yep. Most of Chris's main deck cards are pretty well suited in this matchup. All of his equipment are relevant, and he could maybe board out the Mirran Crusader against the Lightning Bolt deck. And probably boarding out Phyrexian Revoker, as that doesn't do very much. But otherwise, he's probably not looking to board too much.
Yeah, so you're taking those 2 out. You're bringing in the Council's Judgments, which is 2, and then Paths, which is 2, so it's 4.
Yeah, you can cut the 3 Revokers and
there's 3 Revokers. Yeah.
Maybe one of his one-of creatures. Possibly Mirror Crusader Palace Jailer would be.
Yeah. Palace Jailer seems fine. I mean, it's weak to removal, but
it's also weak to just getting attacked.
Yeah, that's fair.
If your opponent has a True Name Nemesis, they immediately negate the effect.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different card. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Palace Jailer is a very weird wording where it exiles the creature until you stop being the monarch.
Yeah.
Unlike other Fiend Hunter or Banisher Priest type effects.
Definitely. So our match is starting here. Deathray Shaman for Shawn Tabrizi on his turn 1, and Mom on Christopher's turn 1. Mom could do a lot of work in this matchup if Shawn can't deal with it immediately. He's
got a Pit Needle in hand, which is almost certainly going to name the mother if he doesn't draw a removal spell, which he does not.
Gonna needle your mother. Definitely. There's that Pithy Needle is stretched pretty thin. There's a lot of cards that card could hit in this Dead and Taxes list that are all pretty relevant.
Definitely.
And Shawn's making use of that Brainstorm into fetch land.
Yeah, he's gonna have a pretty good turn here. He's got to ponder to look at some more cards, and then if he doesn't find a removal spell, then just needle the mother.
Yeah, it's crazy when you're like, it's turn 2 and your opponent gets to cast 3 spells.
Yeah, Death Red is a very good magic card.
Yep.
Actually, he might even play a 4th spell if he's got a probe.
He also has a Daze. So it's gonna be a really good sequence of plays for Shawn here.
And we see Christopher did bring in Rest in Peace, so maybe more afraid of graveyard shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense because of how hard Gurmag Angler is to kill if you don't have your Swords or Path in hand, and how it will just trump everything you're trying to do. I could see the very notion of that, and also if you do get rid of their graveyard with with that resting piece, it means that he will probably never be able to cast it. It will always be dead in hand. I mean, I like to see a game where a Delver gets to 7 mana, but I bet Shawn does not.
I mean, I guess depending on how many wastelands he uses, it is possible. He has 10 mana producing lands in his deck.
Yeah.
He's thinking pretty hard about this Ponder. It seems like a pretty easy shuffle.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the extra land. And
it's probably the Force Will that he likes the most, but you already have a Daze, which will probably do some work next.
And he's drawing a redundant Deathrite, which I don't think he needs more mana.
So he's opting to play the second Deathrite over playing the Pithing Needle. I mean, I
guess need to.
Yeah, you can play the Pithing Needle whenever.
Yeah, Needle immediately. And he also sees Wasteland in Christopher's hand, so he wants to make sure he has a decent amount of mana even if he gets Wastelanded.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. And a Richardon port, yeah.
Well, this is getting dazed.
Yeah, no, you can't have that.
No, thank you, sir.
No Stoneforge for you.
So now he has Force Will without any blue cards.
Notably, Shawn is pretty heavy on lands here for his deck, which is kind of a downside. And no way to really get out of it. That Ponder was the only draw spell it looked like he had in his hand. So that's where I also agree with you, the shuffling that away rather than keeping it.
He's definitely going to shuffle this turn because he knows that the top card of his deck's another land.
Yeah.
And with this resting piece, the second Deathrite Shaman is looking very bad.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a blue card to exile to Force a Will.
This is going to resolve, and
it makes these Deathrite Shamans real bad too.
He's going to ding her for 2 in response. That's about it.
I can see reasonings with these resting pieces. Deathrite Shaman's also another big piece that's just nice to remove from the game as far as being useful. And now you get to wasteland away another land. Essentially put your opponent down to 1 mana in 2 1/2s. I mean, Shawn's lucky he's got a couple lands in his hand now to rebuild this, but this appeared to be a pretty good turn for Christopher.
Yeah, really just Shawn's draw developed poorly. He had a land-heavy hand that had a Brainstorm that could have potentially dug him out of it, but the Brainstorm hit more lands, and then Ponder.
So he decided to hit
He
decided to hit the Underground Sea over the red source. I would have probably liked to hit the red source for the lightning bolts, which ironically Shawn just drew. So now he could, in theory, play this tropical island that he has, and then play Pithing Needle into lightning bolt to kill this mom.
Well, once he needles the mom, he's probably gonna lightning bolt something else.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely. Lightning Bolt is a more problematic card than any black spells.
Yeah, again, he could be playing around thinking that he's got things like Fatal Push, and Fatal Push would be better than Lightning Bolts to be worried about. But
yeah, it makes sense, but getting a little bit punished for it. And his hand is 2 more mothers. Or no, he's got those cards off to the bottom of the screen that he cannot cast.
Yeah.
Let's see if Shawn decides to leave back a 1/2 Deathrite Shaman to block these 1/1 Mother, but now he's just going to get in there for 2.
Stack block, got there!
We were watching the battle of a 1-mana 1/1 with no abilities versus a 1-mana 1/2 with no abilities.
Well, welcome to Death and Taxes.
Yeah.
We beat you in the face with 1/1s. Another Wasteland.
This is how heavy interaction legacy works.
Third mom. My 3-1-1s will beat the clock of your 2-1-1s. Or 1-2s. This match is turned out to be very, very strange.
Yes.
Well, Wasteland is really good for Shawn there. I think you just jam that and you Wasteland the Wasteland. You can't afford to be losing too many mana sources.
Yeah, he definitely wants to waste the waste. Yeah, and leaving back the 1 death right now that it's 1 versus 3 damage makes a little bit more sense.
There we go. He must have heard us and followed our lines of play. Just kidding, they're next door, they can't hear us at all.
Yeah. Drawing another colorless line for Christopher. He's feeling pretty bad now.
Yeah.
He really wants to be able to play that Flicker Wisp and get
Yeah.
a flying creature into play.
So I'm trying to do the other cards. So there's a Path to Exile and a Source Plowshares in his hand. So he could opt to just try to like eventually start. These Death Shadows are not good targets to remove though. Like
No.
now, in theory, he could try to path his own Mother of Runes, and then go get a, second Plains.
That is an option.
He'll triple block. The question is, does Shawn care?
Well, he can't do anything about this. The Death Rat's going to trade for Mother regardless.
Yeah.
And now Young Pyromancer is going to start making tokens. Because he can protect it with Daze and Force.
Days or Force.
Yeah, he doesn't have a second blue card for the Force, but...
Yeah. So likely the Force, if Christopher plays around the Days. Christopher's best hope here is to probably draw into a another Plains, so he can fire off both these removal spells at Pyromancer.
Yeah. I think that, given that he doesn't have a second white source, he might be tempted to fire off into turn, but
Yeah.
he does correctly play around the Days.
Yeah, I played around Days. Force you can't really play around ever, so.
Yeah.
Opting for the swords. Pitching Force of Will.
And yeah.
Trigger.
Gets it.
And he did draw the other Plains.
Alright.
Path it. That was brutal. So now Shawn is going to be forced to make some decisions here.
Yeah, as the board sits, Shawn doesn't really have any good attacks. He can trade a token for a mom, but
Yeah. He's going to try to...
attacking Death Red into the double block isn't great.
No, I almost think... Like, you want to say this Lightning Bolt for something better, but there is an argument to just bolting one of the moms and then attacking for 2. Like,
He knows Christopher has the Flicker Wisp and now the mana to cast it, so he really doesn't want to use Bolt if he doesn't have to.
that's fair.
And that's a pretty good ponder.
Fourth Bolt is amazing.
He can draw Delver, play it, and guarantee that it's going to flip, and then Fourth Bolt is
Yeah.
going to be a little awkward in the face of Port, but if Christopher taps out for Flicker Wisp, then this Fourth Bolt's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. Yeah, so he did definitely go in that order. Attacking with the token.
Yep.
Taking the 1. Playing a Delver. I kind of like the option of leaving back Flicker Wisp, in a sense. Like, looks like he's opting not to, but for the sake of that, you can Flicker Delver and reset it.
Yeah.
But
He could have flickered a land, but I think he's figuring that the port will not be necessary and doesn't realize that Shawn's drawing a sorcerer speed removal spell that's probably one of the best possible cards he could have.
yeah, most certainly. Also, getting rid of the token, the elemental token seems good.
Yeah. It makes sense from Christopher's standpoint, but did not work out very well for him.
So let's see what he drew. He drew a Caracas.
Ooh.
It's the Jam of Batterskull. Well,
Shawn actually has an Ancient Grudge on top of his deck.
oh no!
Another play that seems fantastic from Christopher's point of view.
It's just gonna come back to bite
Yeah.
him.
Shawn having the one of Ancient Grudge.
Wow,
Reckon.
huge. Just rip Ancient Grudge.
Just show him that it was on top.
Just slap your opponent in the face. Stop that. You don't get to win.
And now I think Christopher just took 4 down to 3.
Yeah.
So he should be dead.
Dead to this lightning bolt that's in Shawn's hand. That he has been very patient with, which again does pay dividends.
I think the players are playing a little fast there. Didn't update the life totals on our iPad.
Yeah, and Christopher's just going to scoop it up. We'll go to a game 3. Give you guys an actual time around check here. There's 1 minute left in time.
Yeah, and it's 1 minute plus their extension, which I believe was close to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, plenty of time for potential game 3.
That was super interesting. Again, these are the kind of matchups I like. Again, the margins for errors are very slim. So each decision you make has a huge impact. And you get rewarded a lot for patience and taking the right lines of play.
Christopher, remembering.
Yeah. you mean I don't get to start with Rest in Peace and play?
That would be decent.
So it's interesting that he brought in those Rest in Pieces.
Yeah, it did work out well for him, given that Shawn drew 2 death rights.
Yeah.
But I do still think that it's probably not going to be fantastic in an average game.
I know most people, like, every Delver list, though, does vary on how much graveyard interaction they use. So, he may take them out after this game, but again, Deathrite Shaman and, again, number of Gurmag Anglers as well. Varies from list to list.
Yeah.
This one's running 2, so it's less so than others. Running 2 Young Pyromancers in a place where sometimes you see 4 Gurmag Anglers.
Yeah, Snapcaster Mage and Cabal Therapy both being kind of commonly played cards that are not in Shawn's deck.
Yeah.
So, a little bit less graveyard interaction than most Grixis lists.
Ironically, this is another thing that Christopher's doing that which seems right from his side of the table. But when you do have perfect knowledge, realize that Shawn's got the answer.
I definitely don't fault him for it.
No, definitely not.
And I think that given out how that game played out, he's even more likely to keep it in. Just because it was pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's results oriented thinking, but yeah, it's real hard when your opponent had double Deathrite Shaman and honestly couldn't do anything for very many turns other than beat you in the face for 2.
Yeah.
Notably, Shawn did not draw any dead cards like Gurmag Angler or something like that in that match as well. And having a land heavy draw was great. So this hand is fantastic because it's 7 spells, but no lands, so you know you can't keep.
Yeah, well, it's immune to Wasteland because there's not many lands.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to work out very well.
No, I love when people are trying to justify, they're like, well, my 7-card hand was great. It didn't have any lands. Well, of course it was great. You had 7 spells.
Yeah. That's not really how things work out.
No, yeah.
Let's see. Christopher's hand looks pretty land heavy, but he's got Stoneforge to Rest in Peace and some. I think I saw both a Wasteland and a Port, so not horrible.
Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so he's got 1 land, 2 Ponders, True Name, Young Pyromancer, Lightning. Well, that seems keepable.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
You
but
need to draw
you can't
another
go down
lands.
to 5.
The hard thing here is that it's going to be a debate on for Christopher when he fires off this Wasteland. I think if Shawn misses his 2nd land drop, that Wasteland is going to be fired off like almost immediately.
Well, now Shawn has a real decision, because if he plays Deathrite, he's vulnerable to swords or a path, and with Christopher not playing anything on his first turn, yeah, it's actually pretty likely that he has to remove a spell.
So he decided to get a Volcanic Island instead.
Yeah, he's going to ponder and be more likely to hit his 2nd land drop, which is pretty important.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting soul reads. Like, I wonder how many lands are in Christopher's hand. If he's got no real good turn 2 play, but he has several, so he won't do this. But like, you could in theory like just Ghost Quarter on turn 2.
I think he's pretty likely to play out a Stoneforge Mystic here, though maybe he wants to play around Daze.
That looks like forcing 2 lands.
Yeah,
although they're both fetch lands, that's totally keepable.
Yeah, he's going to draw the Force, so he has protection this turn, and then have a fetch land. And
looks like Christopher drew.
From there.
Ooh, he just passes.
Yeah, he's playing around Daze, which
Yeah.
makes sense. Though I'm curious as to why he didn't play the Port instead of the basic.
Yeah, play the Port and tap your opponent's land.
Unless, oh no, he does have a port in his hand.
Yeah. I guess he's still wanting to hold open swords.
But he doesn't have swords.
Oh. I can't tell. Okay.
It's just,
So this gets forced, right? I mean, you have to pitch a...
He could just bolt it under the assumption that Christopher is going to get a Batter Skull and then not be able to put it into play.
That's fair. And he will likely get that Batter Skull or the GT. It's one of the two. Because he's got the Fire Knights already in hand. He drew it.
Yeah, I think Fire Knights would be the one that you would go for first. But given that he already has it in hand, he's just going to get Batter Skull.
Yeah. And he doesn't have a creature heavy hand either. If you have a creature heavy hand, I could see also the argument for getting a GT there.
Yeah.
Because it turns out Delver's really bad when you get to connect with a GT. Playing 1/1s for ones that die immediately, not exactly ideal.
So now Shawn is going to play a Young Pyromancer. He's got Force Oil Protection, so this is looking potentially good.
Yeah.
Though, honestly, Pyromancer is not as good at running away with the game in this matchup, when Death and Taxes deck can make a decent number of creatures to block the tokens.
Definitely. And it looks like Christopher drew a Path to Exile.
So now this is going to get forced. We'll see. It's a pretty close decision whether he wants to pitch the Ponder or the True Name.
Yeah. So if, no matter what Shawn does here, really, so I guess if he's just gonna let it go. Okay.
Oh.
Interesting.
So he's really valuing just being able to play this True Name and having that be his only threat.
So Chris is gonna try to jam this Rest in Peace.
And I think Shawn has to let this go. He has the Death Right, but it's
Yeah.
really not that relevant.
So I wonder if Shawn took out Gurmag Angler after he saw Rest in Peace.
That would be a pretty good idea, I think.
Like, I'd be fine with the high upside, high risk of Deathray Shaman, but I don't want it for the Gurmag Angler. Even if it is decent in this matchup, it's not good against Rest in Peace.
It's also not good in that Christopher has swords and path to potentially remove it.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah, you see that he brought in Path to Exile.
Now Shawn's just pondered to try to find a third land for this True Name. He drew second Force to have an extra blue card for the first one. It's pretty convenient.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And a
third force. Well, Christopher, anything that's valuable to you is not resolving.
And honestly, we might see this 1/2 Deathrite Shaman getting for a lot of damage if Shawn just forces the next two things Christopher plays.
Well, it'll get him for 1 damage a turn for
Well,
back to back turns. So I think you probably just force that. Like you have
to force anything, and you're pitching redundant force.
Yeah. And if you can rip a land, you get to
draw
play
this turn, I think.
If you rip a land, you have this True Name, which will be good. So Batter Skull, Swords, Thalia, and Flicker Wisp for Christopher. That's pretty good.
Delver's pretty good as
Did
well.
draw a Delver. You got the hope for the blind flips, but better than nothing.
Probably going to force whatever this is.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Thalia.
Yeah, it's going to be Thalia with the ability to port.
Again,
so,
I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the. Granted, I played a lot of Flicker Wisp in Modern, and it's maybe more important in Modern. I really love using things like Flicker Wisp to reset Delvers. Because people don't expect it, and then they have to put effort into reflipping it. And Shawn is now down to 2 cards in hand. Or 1 card in hand. No, 2. It's a Force of Will and...
yeah, it's Force of Will plus True Name.
But he's only got a couple cards left in hand, and...
You cannot play that Ponder because there's a Thalia.
Yeah. Attacking for 3.
If Christopher draws a land, he can actually port and then be able to play a spell that...
Oh, he did. Let's see if he sees the line of play. Tap your land. Play Flicker Wisp, probably. Or play, the sword.
Yeah, he's just going to play it out.
Oh, he's playing the Flicker Wisp. See, I actually kind of like tapping it down and then playing this this sword.
I definitely like guaranteeing that you can resolve a sword.
Yeah. Although,
But he can just do that on a later turn.
yeah. Although on the plus side, you do know that Shawn revealed from his hand that he had a spell he wanted to cast last turn.
Yeah.
But he couldn't. So now you want to port him every turn.
He also he can't play the sword because it costs 1 more mana with Thalia.
Fair. I always forget.
Yeah, I
Thalia.
forgot about that briefly.
It's like with Blood Moon, as you were talking about earlier. People forget that Thalia affects you as well.
Yeah. It's alright. Chat's smarter than us. They caught it immediately.
Thanks, chat.
And Shawn drew Dread of Night, which is going to be fantastic if we can ever cast it. But
Yeah.
this port is keeping him locked down for the time being. Yeah, and now he has the ability to play sword. If it resolves, just equip it and bash. He's going to opt for the Batter Skull.
I do like this. Shawn hasn't shown any way to really, other than Ancient Grudge, to really remove like the Germ Token at all. Notably, he can't cast Ancient Grudge yet either. And one swing of Lifelink with this is huge in this matchup.
Yeah, Shawn's going to get to stick the Dread of Night here. And then if he does draw exactly Ancient Grudge, then he's going to be able to answer the Batter Skull next turn.
Yeah.
But he's only going to have 1 turn in order to rep. Because Batter Skull plus sword is a pretty fast clock.
Yeah, and he's only going to have... Yeah, it's gonna be ridiculous, and it's that Delver's gonna die if he doesn't have that turn to rip it.
He can block with the Death Right to get...
Not necessarily after this turn, like,
yeah,
because he's going to have to block.
Well, it's also just essentially 8 power.
And he has the port. I think Christopher's gonna get this game.
Yeah.
During your upkeep, tap down your red source. So now you draw a force. That's not going to be good enough because Christopher already has what he needs on board. Play a ponder and try to find something here.
Yeah. Again, he has to find exactly Ancient Grudge.
And land.
Well, he doesn't need the land anymore because the value is gone.
Yeah. Well, the Shard Port's going to keep one of the lands tapped.
Yeah, but
So,
if he draws the Grudge off the ponder, then
Yeah.
he can play in response to the port.
That's fair. It's fair enough.
But he's going to take 6 here from the equipped Batter Skull, and then have 1 turn to rip it before he's done.
Did he rip it? No.
He drew a Brainstorm, so he's drawn live for next turn.
Yeah, I love the like slowly peel. Like maybe I can find it.
May as well hit with this Delver. It looks like there's a brief life total discrepancy.
Yeah. 16 to 11 is what we have on our screen here. It looks like that's also what Christopher Sorenson had written on his life pad.
Yeah. Not super relevant.
Attack for
It's
3.
a 2-turn clock, almost regardless.
Yeah.
Even if the life totals are off by a little bit.
Well, I think you kill the Delver.
Yeah, he's going to kill the Delver this turn, and then
Yeah.
Next turn, it's going to be lethal.
Yeah. Yeah, Batter Skull, spoiler, is really good at turning the corner against Delver decks.
It's pretty good at turning the corner against anything that cares about your life total.
So, and the other downside here is even if he has Ancient Grudge now, if Christopher just leaves up in the mana, he could easily bounce it back to hand. And while that doesn't necessarily is not great because you have to recast the Batter Skull, that sword on the Germ Token is still going to get there.
Yeah. It is still a 2-2.
So he could, in theory, opt not to kill the Delver and just do the 2 damage to face here, because this makes the the Germ Token by itself with the sword lethal next turn.
That's true. And the Delver isn't actually doing that much.
Yeah.
So if Shawn drew an Ancient Grudge, he could just Ancient Grudge the sword and leave the Delver back to block.
But then you're just chumping, and I think you're fine with that if you're Christopher. Nope, he decides to do the thing to kill, and there's a Thalia. So we're gonna
This is getting forced.
Yeah.
Though, if he forces, then he's down to 4, which means a 2/2 germ plus
That's also
the
still
sword trigger
lethal.
is just lethal.
Yeah.
So I don't think Shawn has any outs anymore.
Tap you down.
He's putting the black source to make death right, not a potential chump blocker.
Yeah. Shawn's going to brainstorm in response. He's got to find land and a.
That did not
Those
do it.
are not going to do it. And there's the handshake.
Yep.
Wow, that was close. I mean, life totals don't say that, but the game was still down to the wire. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Pretty
We get
good
back to
stuff.
booth. Yeah, that was a great match. As it's been today. Again, like grindy, interactive, and again, very high skill ceiling for decision-making processes to calculate your
Absolutely.
house, figure out what you need, and from both sides of that table
Yep.
to make sure you don't walk your way into a crummy situation.